Rundown, 31st, 2024. This is sponsored by the Sportscast. You can follow us on X and all your major platforms at the Sportscast 1. We're also on DAB Digital Radio. If you have any questions, you can always go to our website, thesportscast.com. My name is Alan West. I am here with Jack of all trades, master of more than me, Mr. Bob Alvis. How we doing, sir?
We're well. How are you, sir?
I'm doing better than last week. So you know
Good
what? I
deal.
am thankful. Just because last week, well, I think that's the first show I haven't done since I started doing the show. So my my Iron Man streak is now over.
Start a new one.
Exactly. I'm gonna do my best to start a new one. That is correct. Just because, well, unfortunately at work I got injured, and I get to walk around with a lovely walking boot if I want to walk around anywhere in my house or anywhere. Period. That and a walker. So I wouldn't recommend it though, but I can say that hearing a bone snap, I've never felt that before. I don't think I ever want to feel it again.
Yeah, it doesn't sound too appealing.
Not really, unfortunately. But you know what? It is what it is. I'm thankful I'm here and thankful we can do this show. So, before we get into college sports per se, I don't know if you noticed, but the Jackie Robinson statue in, I believe, Kansas got vandalized. Did you hear about that much?
Yes, sir.
So apparently some group thought it was a good idea to cut the statue down and then burn it. So while I disagree with that happening, because I mean Jackie Robinson was a trailblazer, not only in baseball, but he was a highly decorated athlete when he was at UCLA as well, I believe.
Yep.
So to see that happened was honestly a tragedy. So I saw that as of today, they already have gotten 140,000 in donations. So I'm looking forward to them being able not only to get the statue back up, but to I think it needs to be protected a little bit more. Unfortunately, just because having that happen again, it's a shame that that could happen again in this nation. But protection sometimes can help.
Yep.
Now, normally you and Tyler would be talking about head coaches, and well, we heard today that Jeff Halfley, he's gone from being the Boston College head coach, he's going to be the Green Bay Packers defensive coordinator. So, who do you think is going to take over that job?
You know, I don't really focus on the coordinators as much. A lot of times, what you'll see is a position coach will move up to the coordinator position. I can tell you this though, from my talking to coaches at a lower level in college, you know, everybody says being a coordinator is not as easy as you may hear it to be. So just because you're signing up to be a coordinator, they're not going to give it to any old yahoo. But I would expect a lot of times that these coordinator positions are normally going to be filled by people already on the staff because you don't want to break up the monotony too much. And a lot of times I think it's about who will play hard still for said individual.
True, and I mean, the thing for Jeff Halfley, before he was at Boston College, he was at Ohio State for 1 year, and he had been an NFL defensive or a coordinator in the NFL for at least a position coach in the NFL from 2012 to 2018. So this is another way for him to go back, and I mean, what he did at Boston College was pretty respectable. I mean, he got them to bowl games every year, but I mean, some of the games they played, it's a little rough. I mean, even for the ACC, but you know what? If you're able to be successful and then you get a chance to move up, you gotta take it.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, I think any position to be even a coordinator is a it's a high reputable position, and coordinators definitely do need to get the love because they're having to game plan for a whole side of the ball essentially. So, but like I said, a lot of times I think you're going to find, at least on the college level, when you don't have a major job, you're going to find a lot of times I think that the spot's going to be filled by a assistant coach who is not a dummy, obviously, because like we said, to be a coordinator, you got to have some know-it-all.
Hmm. Very true, and then it's entertaining for that. Hopefully, he has a longer coordinating job timeline than former Boston College coach, I want to say Jeff Jagosinski,
Yep.
where he did not make it through the off season when he was hired.
Well, and a lot of times too, assistant coaching positions are not the most secure thing ever in the world because if your head coach moves on, whatever way he moves on, normally the assistants are gone too.
Hmm. Yeah, so we'll be curious to see what happens at Boston College and keep track of that. ESPN did an article about the college football coaching hot seat for this coming year. And so we have Sam Pittman of Arkansas.
Yep.
We have Dave Aranda at Baylor. And we have Billy Napier at Florida as the three ones that are definitely on the hot seat. Then for the names to keep an eye on, you got Chip Kelly at UCLA, Clark Lee at Vanderbilt, Ryan Day at Ohio State, Kalani Sitake at BYU, and then Pat Narduzzi at Pitt.
Out of all those gigs, I think the one that should feel safest is probably Vanderbilt. Only been there like 2 or 3 years, I think, and that Vanderbilt job is not a job that is desired by a ton of people. And if you can find a coach that can win at Vanderbilt, I mean, i.e., James Franklin, i.e., Derek Mason, you hang on to those guys until it just becomes you can't have them anymore. But I mean, James Franklin did good things with Vanderbilt. I think Derek Mason did good things with Vanderbilt. So like I would pump the brakes on Vanderbilt if it was me.
Well, the only thing is, right now for Lee going into year 4, he's 9-27 overall, with just 2 wins in SEC in 24 SEC games.
Vanderbilt.
True. I mean, we'll see what happens.
I mean,
Chip
out of
Kelly,
all
I'm
the ones you
definitely
mentioned, Alan, don't mean to interrupt. I would think Napier is probably the hottest. I'll get your take because you're closer to the situation than I am. I say this like you're in the meeting rooms at Ohio State, but for Ryan Day, how hot is the seat?
Well, here's the thing. You saw that Gene Smith just retired at Ohio State, and they brought in the Texas A&M athletic director. And what was one of the last things the Texas A&M athletic director did before he left Texas A&M?
Got rid of Jimbo?
Exactly. So, if Ryan Day doesn't do more than he did this year, it's quite possible he could be gone.
Would you want Ryan Day out?
I really think it'll happen, but it's possible.
Would you want him out?
I don't know if I'd want him out per se, but there's one game that he needs to win that he hasn't won in the last 3 years.
Sure. And let me be devil's advocate real quick on that to cut you off because I asked the question. Now I'm going to interrupt. But I mean, James Franklin can't beat any of the big teams in the Big Ten. And you don't hear about a hot seat for him. I think that what that says is the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry is so beyond comprehension, and it's such a huge thing that if you could go almost, undefeated, but you lose that game. And we're having this discussion.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's true, but growing up, I dealt with John Cooper being the coach at Ohio State, and he went 2-10-1. So for him to survive as long as he did at Ohio State, and then watching Tressel and Urban have their dominance, it's a little frustrating seeing how Ryan Day has not been able to rise to the occasion.
What's the one thing I always say about firing coaches? Do you know?
I don't remember, but I'm going to let you say it again.
Okay. If you are going to fire somebody, you better have somebody in mind that you're going to hire, and you better have a list of 3, and one of those 3 is going to say yes. Because if not, I think it gets to be silly season. And, if you're Ohio State's a big job. I mean, top 10 job in the country at least. You got to know. I mean, you can't not have it be an embarrassment to where I don't think you can say, I wonder if this guy would take the job. You better know.
True, and I mean, I don't think that they're going to let Ryan Day go, but I would like to see him not lose that one game this coming year.
He's on the list, if you want my honest opinion.
Huh?
I think it's semi-absurd that he's on the list.
It is. I mean, he's won a lot of games otherwise. He is, I believe, 58 and 56-8 overall.
You don't normally do the coaching thing with me, but who do you think should be on the list that's not?
I don't think Ryan Day should be on the list. I definitely think
Well, who do you think should be on the list?
Huh?
Who should be on the list?
Billy Napier
that's
definitely.
Not on the list. Pardon?
Who isn't on the list?
That should be.
That's a good question. But the other thing is, for this article that ESPN did, they also have a few other names that are on retirement watch. Because let me read you the rest of these names that they have on here. You've got Mac Brown for retirement, Kyle Whittingham for Utah retirement, possibly, and Kirk Ferentz. And then here are the ones, the group of 5 that they have on the hot seat. You got Will Hall at Southern Miss, Mike Houston, East Carolina, Stan Drayton, Temple, Mike New, Ball State, and Don Brown at UMass.
I mean, I'm going to have to beg to differ with the list on a few of these people, but
sure.
I think Don Brown being on the list from UMass, what are you going to get? I mean, if you're some of these people that are on the list, to me, if you have them on the list, why? Is it because of wins and losses? Is it because you don't think they recruit or can recruit? I mean, what's the reason for them being on the list? You know what I'm saying? And I'm not expecting you to answer that necessarily, but I think that's one of the big questions to me is, how do you get on this list? I mean, I know why Billy Napier is on the list. I don't need explanation on that. I know why Ryan Day is on the list. I don't need explanation on that. And Tyler would vehemently disagree with me, and I'm not saying this guy should be on the list, but if you're putting some of these people on the list, how can you not put James Franklin on the list? Because James Franklin can't win a top 10 game.
Well, the reason why they won't put him on the list is because Penn State can win all the games that aren't important.
But they're important to the people in Happy Valley.
Yeah, but the thing is, you got to remember when James Franklin was hired, I actually talked with a Penn State fan about this.
Mm-hmm.
He was a minority hire, and he was taken over after Bill O'Brien left to go to the Texans. He's been there ever since. The funny thing was, right before he left his final season at Vanderbilt, there was actually a sexual assault that claimed to happen with some of the football players, and he even admitted that he had lied in some testimony. And then he left Vanderbilt and became the head coach of Penn State.
Well, let's make sure we have one thing really clear. I'm not saying James
Mm-hmm.
Franklin's a bad coach. I'm not saying he
I'm
should
not
be
saying
fired.
he's a bad coach, but
Yeah.
the thing is for him, when it comes to playing Ohio State, Michigan State, or Michigan, he gets beat like a redheaded stepchild usually.
No, I understand. I understand the point here, but I'm just saying, Penn State's aspirations are also pretty high. And I just don't understand, I mean, I think he shouldn't be on the list, but based on how silly this list kind of is, I don't understand how you don't put him on there.
Well, I mean, that's how when I was looking at this list, what this list is talking about, it's basically looking more at wins and losses than anything else. So because of that, it's
Well,
going
it's
to
not
have some
looking
names
for that like Ryan Day.
He's on there because of
Michigan
not being able to beat Michigan
right
in the last 3 years. And because when he hasn't won a national championship yet at Ohio State.
I mean, I get where you're going.
They have on him, it talks about if he can not only beat Michigan, but if he can make the playoff, and then depending on how far he can go in the playoff.
Alan, I love you dearly. I get where you're going. I understand, and I don't necessarily disagree with you. But I'm just saying, like from a win-loss record, you can't put Ryan Day on the list. You're putting Ryan Day on the list because he can't beat Michigan. Agree. Understand 100%. James Franklin cannot win a top 10 game. You don't hire people at Penn State to not win top 10 games. I hope James Franklin and Ryan Day both can continue to support their families through their current jobs unless they want to leave. I mean, this is not a Bob hates James Franklin or Bob hates Ryan Day discussion. I don't. If Ryan Day, I think both those guys have done enough at their current schools to leave on their own recourse. I'm not an Ohio State fan like you are, so I can't comment on the Ohio State Michigan thing and have the same passion that you do. I can tell you this: the Ohio State Michigan game, I think, has opened up now, and if Ryan Day has trouble beating Moore multiple times, then we've got an issue to talk about. But I mean, let's be honest here. When we say Ohio State can't beat Michigan, I understand the rivalry. It's not saying like Ohio State can't beat Purdue. You know what I'm saying? I mean, Michigan is a very good football team that a lot of people are going to have trouble beating. But it's just like, to get it localized for my folks in Virginia, if Virginia Tech can't beat Virginia, you got problems. If UVA can't beat Virginia Tech, you got problems for that person. So Ohio State, Michigan is just like UVA and Virginia Tech times 100 million.
Yeah.
So
That's fair. I mean, I'm not going to argue with you about that at all because in some ways it's like apples to oranges just because it's how some of it is. And it just is frustrating, but just seeing how some of the situations happen, it's frustrating just because your expectations for different coaches.
Right.
You're watching as where, like you're saying, for Franklin, you expect him to do a lot more,
Right.
but unfortunately, you're only seeing him being an 8 or 9 win coach most years, and whereas when Joe Pa was there, they would try to do a lot more, but with Franklin there, he's going to win the mediocre games. When it comes to the big games, it's not usually going to happen.
And one thing I think I need to say, and I have a feeling you're going to agree with me, but I'm not going to put words in your mouth. If you beat Iowa, if you beat Wisconsin, if you beat Michigan State, whoever, and they're ranked in the top 20 or top 25, if they're between 11 and 25, that's not a bad win. That's a really good win.
Not at all.
And I mean, I don't know what Franklin's road record is, but I've got to imagine the only games that he's not winning are the Ohio State and the Michigan games.
And Michigan State, but yes. Yeah. Well, actually, this year I think they did better against Michigan State, but I mean, usually against the higher tier, it's a lot harder for him to win. He tries. I'll give him that. But the thing is, I've got a friend who I talk with a lot, and he is a diehard Penn State fan, and he has professed his non-love for James Franklin many times to me.
Let me ask you one question here real quick, and then we can change subjects if you want to. I want Allen West here. I don't want ESPN's list. I don't want anything other than Allen West. What criteria would have you put somebody on the list? Wins and losses or recruiting? And by recruiting, I mean out of high school or the portal. I mean, I think they probably go together, in a way. But I just want to hear your take.
They do go together, but the thing is, what a lot of people are going to look at are the wins and losses more just with how, like, if you're able to go from 6 wins to 9 wins and go higher, depending on which conference you're in, it can make a huge difference.
Sure.
A lot of teams, like, they will use the recruiting and transfer portal. Some know how to do it, some don't, and because of that, you just have to watch and play it by ear, which is part of what we're going to talk about next, because, the NCAA, they're getting blasted again by Tennessee. I don't know if you saw that little article that came out.
I did.
Did you see that the NCAA has been sued by not only the Tennessee Attorney General, but also the Virginia Attorney General?
Yeah, I mean, the NCAA gets, I don't want to say they get sued all the time, but, I don't pay attention to the NCAA lawsuits as much because it seems like it happens more often than not. I mean, here's a great example of the NCAA's ineptness, in my opinion. James Wiseman, who was recruited by a booster, a.k.a. his coach, Penny Hardaway, because Hardaway, if I'm not mistaken, gave Wiseman's mother money to move into an apartment, makes him a booster right there. Mm-hmm. Penny should have known better, in my opinion, 100% on that. But then you recruit the guy. The guy is a 5-star, top 5 player in the nation, probably top 2. And I want to say suspended for the first, I can't remember if it was 7 or 13 games at Memphis. Memphis sues the NCAA. And then basically Memphis kind of, I don't want to say thumbed their nose at the NCAA, but like, oh, we'll show you. He's going to play anyway. So like, I mean, I don't feel like the NCAA, I don't know if I should say the words, I don't feel like they're taken seriously, but I mean, like, I don't know. I mean, I think my opinions of the NCAA are well known on this thing, but, yeah.
Well, Bob, simply put, the NCAA is a joke.
No backbone to me.
Huh?
No backbone.
Yeah, their backbone has not been strong. And since Emmert just left, it's even worse now with Baker, because in the article that ESPN wrote, because on Tuesdays about the NCAA was investigating Tennessee and the ball club, and then collected run by Aspire Sports Group. It's because of their 5-star quarterback Nico Iamaleava from California, and his NIL contract. It's one of the deals receiving scrutiny. Tennessee Chancellor donned a plum scathing letter to Baker shortly after school officials met with NCAA representatives to discuss the allegations earlier this week. She said leaders of collegiate sports owe it to students and their families to act in the best interest of clear rules, and the NCAA is nowhere close to providing that. Instead, 2.5 years of vague and contradictory NCAA memos, emails, and guidance about name, image, and likeness has created extraordinary chaos that student athletes and institutions are struggling to navigate. She wrote in a letter released Tuesday. In short, the NCAA is failing. Now, the thing about Tennessee doing this, do you remember when I read that article earlier this year about the lawsuits that the NCAA is dealing with?
Right.
The reason why this is important is because the NCAA, remember how they tried to get immunity against these lawsuits and courts said no? It's because right now the NCAA, they're good at writing checks that they can't cash. And the best example of it is Jim Harbaugh.
Yep.
Because Michigan's going to get blasted. They're going to probably have to vacate the title. Even though Baker said, yeah, they wanted fair and square. Yeah, okay, sure. We'll see about that. And also the sign stealing. He's the only coach in history that's been suspended twice, multiple times in 1 year. During a season. I mean, Michigan, the NCAA has been just kind of giving them a slap on the wrist. And so with Harbaugh leaving, Michigan's going to be suffering some penalties. And it's not going to be part of the players' faults there. Because I had sent you an article earlier this week. Did you read that article?
I believe I did.
Do you remember how it talked about some of the different indiscretions that Michigan had, including, I believe it was an assault by Taylor Lewan?
Right.
And I mean, the NCAA, they've been a joke. And so seeing how it's about to be, Michigan's going to pay for it in some ways. And I think that they're going to have a lot of those wins vacated. The title's probably going to be vacated. And there's going to be other issues that are going on. But the NCAA, because, like you said, they have no backbone, they're going to basically kiss Michigan's butt as they're doing the penalties to try to make them as non-punishable as possible.
But see, one thing I think it's stupid when you get into stuff of we're going to vacate wins or vacate championships, because even if someone cheated or whatever happens, you can't erase somebody's memory. I mean, last time I checked, Michigan won the national title game, not Washington.
Mm-hmm.
In Chrysler Arena, years back, Michigan had that banner. They made the Final Four. If I'm not mistaken, the banner got taken down.
For the Fab Five, yes.
But I don't know about you. Well, I don't know where you were a youngin.
I know about it, Bob. I know about the Fab Five.
Right. No, I wasn't. I know you know about the Fab Five. I was just going to say you were a youngin when the banner was probably taken down. But anyway, the whole point of the story is Alan, you've lived many years in terms of watching sports. Can anybody do that Men in Black thing to where they put that flashy thing up, punch it, and you lose all your memory? Or did Michigan win a national title? So, I
agree with you, Bob. But the thing is, the NCAA, that's what they're going to try to do. That's what they did for Ohio State with the tattoo scandal.
Right.
Before, when they had to vacate all those wins. I mean, you're going to see the NCAA try to flex their non-existent muscles for the time being. Oh yeah, they're going to fine them money, but it doesn't matter anymore because you're going to start to see, like we talked about, the NCAA is going to they're gonna get killed soon because they had the chance to where they could try to control the NIL. They had the chance to where they could be stronger and make rules that were stringent to actually make things fair,
Right.
and they failed. And not only did they fail, they've made it to where if you don't do something that they like, whether it's been done the right way or not, they're going to punish you.
And I think you were just reading that article or something to where you said there is chaos going on with the NIL. Well, gee, you don't say. How could there be chaos going on with the NIL? I mean, like, for anybody to be surprised about that, to me, is just like, that would be like me saying I'm surprised because the sun came up and the moon came up. Really? I mean, like, I don't understand how anybody is surprised that there is chaos with the NIL. I mean, under no circumstance. How did you think it was going to work when you don't legislate it and put rules? I mean, we both have kids. If you say to your child, no cookies before dinner, then that means no cookies before dinner. If you don't say, no cookies, and she eats 12 cookies, she didn't break the rule. You are an idiot for not setting it.
Yeah.
I mean, so like when they don't like set a rule and then they're surprised there's chaos, really? I mean,
Well, I mean that, and think about it. In the last 2 or 3 years, they've been in front of the NCAA. The NCAA has been in front of Congress 10 different times already. Now, usually it's bad enough when you're in front of Congress at least once, but 10
right,
times?
right. Yeah, I'm with you.
I mean, it's a joke. So they really need to get their crap together. It's not going to happen, but it would be nice if they did. So, quickly though, I do want to make sure that I want to make a mention for women's basketball today. We did have a milestone today. Caitlin Clark jumped over Kelsey Mitchell to become the number 2 all-time leading scorer in women's basketball history. So that is something that is very impressive, and we want to make sure that we congratulate Caitlin Clark for that.
I think, and I'm going to challenge you to do this, and we'll talk about it on a future podcast.
Okay.
Since women's basketball has been in existence, which I think is like since 1980, rank the top 5 people or teams that have brought the most attention to women's basketball. And I'm saying good attention, not like the Women's World Cup soccer team when Brandy Chastain ripped off her shirt, had on a sports bra. I don't know if that's good attention, but it was attention. But top 5 women's basketball players or teams that have brought attention to the game, and I guarantee you Caitlin Clark is in your top 5.
I think she's getting there now, yes. I would say Pat Summitt, Gino Auriemma.
We'll go Tennessee and UConn then.
Okay, we can say Tennessee and UConn.
For me, I would put Cheryl Miller.
Yeah, so
because she was so highly touted coming out of high school.
Yeah. I would say either Candace Parker or Shamika Holdsclaw for Tennessee.
Well, we got I mean, I get where you're going. I just don't know if I can put them ahead of Caitlin Clark because, like I said, I lumped them in with Tennessee, and we already got Tennessee on the list.
All right.
So
Cheryl Swoops.
I think Caitlin Clark dwarfs her at this point.
Well, so far she has a title, and Clark doesn't.
Swoops had teammates. I mean, I get where you're going. I'm not arguing with you on that. I'm trying to be devil's advocate just so we don't agree on everything about it.
How about now you're gonna make me think a little bit, which is good. Let's see.
And I mean, Rebecca Lobo was a big deal, but again, I'm going to lump her in with UConn. I'm going to lump Sue Bird, Diana Taurasi. They go in with UConn just because UConn. I mean, in 20 years or 30 years or whatnot, I don't know that we're going to be talking about Iowa women's basketball. I mean, we
That's
may
true.
because they may springboard on this, but ultimately, I don't know that we're talking. We're going to talk about Tennessee women's basketball. I don't want to say forever, but kinda. We're always going to be talking about UConn women's basketball. But after
Hmm.
Tennessee, UConn, and in my eyes, Cheryl Miller, I mean, I'm sure somebody could find a four. I'm not trying to get into an argument with somebody, but I just think Caitlin Clark is top five.
I would say she is now definitely.
And let me say real quick, I'm not saying she's one of the five greatest players. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying five teams or people that have brought women's college basketball to more eyes than it would normal. And I think you got to put Caitlin Clark in there because you can't put Iowa. You can't not say Iowa because if Caitlin Clark wasn't Iowa, you know, I mean, you talked about Holdsclaw. You talked about who else did you? You said somebody
Parker,
else. Who?
Candace
Candace
Parker.
Parker. I mean, with all due respect, Tennessee is probably still getting attention if Holdsclaw and Parker aren't there because Tennessee has a rich tradition. UConn is probably still getting tread without Lobo, Bird, or Tarazi. Because you got to think, I mean, without Lobo, Bird, and Tarazi, there's probably another Lobo, Bird, and Tarazi. Maybe not as good, but somebody that's impactful. Same thing with
All right, I
Tennessee.
got one for you,
Go
Bob.
for it.
Brittany Griner.
That's up there. Yeah, you're right. That's a good one.
So I mean, you could use her or Skylar Diggins is another one.
I don't know who that is.
She was at Notre Dame.
Right, but I mean, I know who it is, but I think more people are going to know Caitlin Clark over Skylar Diggins.
Yeah.
So,
Or let's see, Anita Beard. I think that's her name. Or is Alana Beard? Sorry, Alana Beard.
right, you think that's her name? And Alan, I have great respect for you, but if you're saying you think that's somebody's name, you know Caitlin Clark's name. You don't have to think that's her name. I think more people.
Only because she's playing now, whereas Alana Beard was at Duke.
Sure.
And I'm just having to go back and think because I want to think she was back in 2005, right around there.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I just don't think it holds a candle to Caitlin Clark, though. But
That's fair. I mean, Caitlin Clark, the way that she is. The other thing is with how the NIL is, she could have gone in the WNBA draft, but instead she stayed. Because I mean, she's making more money at Iowa than she would be in the WNBA. Sure. And I mean, she definitely has been able to, because of the NIL, she's able to leverage a State Farm commercial, yep. And she's able to do other things to where before players couldn't do that. I mean, I've got an example for you, Bob.
Go for it.
Do you remember when Boise State beat Oklahoma in the bowl game?
Yep.
When Zabransky did the Statue of Liberty play?
Yep.
And then Ian Johnson proposed to his girlfriend, yep. The cheerleader.
Yep.
They weren't allowed to accept gifts because it would have been an NCAA violation. Whereas now, if that happened, they could accept anything they wanted.
Right.
I mean, times are changing.
Sure.
And whether it's good or bad, when there's no control over it, now the NCAA is kind of like, hey, we screwed up and now we're trying to catch up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say you were right. Caitlin Clark is definitely a generational player. Right. I'll give you that. But I'm curious to see how that's going to make her when she goes to the WNBA.
I don't think it really does anything. A lot of great players have gone on to the WNBA, and I mean, I don't know what you want, and I'm not saying you, but I don't know what people want. Like, you want $1 million WNBA player? I mean, what do you want out of somebody that's going to the WNBA? Because, I can tell you this. I'm a fan of women's sports, but a lot of people are still going to take men's sports every day of the week. And, that is not only at a college level, that's at a professional level, that's at a sport of any anything, like even a single sport like a tennis or a golf. I think people are always going to, if they had the option, go for the men over the women. And don't want to get onto the soapbox or anything, but women don't get paid what men do. And I don't think Caitlin Clark is going to be able to change that because, yeah, she's good, but I mean, if you're putting 10,000 more, clicks on the TV, that's good. But I mean, it's only 10,000. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think it's enough to significantly move the needle.
Well, I can tell you that one of her players who was drafted to the WNBA, Monica Cesano, she didn't even make it through training camp
Right.
before she was cut. So, I mean, I'm just curious to see how it's going to go because you know that they have the WNBA and then people play overseas, although most people I don't think are ever going to play in Russia anymore just after what happened with Griner, and I would blame them.
Right. I mean, the reason they're doing these things overseas is the reason why I have to do all the side work of sports announcing in addition to my regular job because I need money. And I mean, I don't, whatever my lifestyle is, that's, nobody's business but my own type of thing. But like, same thing for women's basketball players. I mean, to accommodate their style of living or their lifestyle, they got to, play more than just a WNBA season.
I mean, it's definitely a lot different than how it was even for the NFL back in the day, but it's seeing the transition and just what comes up because when you're watching different sports, you'll see how people have their regular contract and they have their
Yep.
endorsements, and just seeing how that is. And watching that even for the NCAA now, it's I don't want to say complicated, but it's more without control. You're seeing it be a loose cannon for a lot of teams.
And by the way, I know I always talk about how I play my immaculate grid. They have one for women's basketball. I'm not even good enough to touch that one. Maybe I can get one or
Really?
two if it's like Sue Bird or Diana Taurasi. But my women's basketball knowledge, when you get to the professionals, is very limited. And I think that's what happens with a lot of people because, everybody loves their college team, their alma mater, so on and so forth. But I think at the end of the day, if you say name two teams that XYZ has played for, I think a lot of people have problems doing it.
Let's see. Did you do that?
Women's basketball?
Yes.
No. I told you I don't do women's basketball. I'll make an absolute fool of myself. It's challenging enough for me to do hockey.
Let's see if get it
I
popped
watched
up.
1 year of hockey when I was a teenager. Imagine if I watched 2 years of hockey. Man, I'd be like a juggernaut.
Let's see. Trying to see if I can find that one for women's basketball for today because I may be able to answer it.
Let's see if I can.
Let's see.
Played for the New York Liberty and the Minnesota Lynx. Like, I know these teams, I just don't know anybody who played for 2 years.
You know what? I'll let you look that up right now while I check on.
I got 2, all WNBA. That's what I was able to take care of.
So what was it?
The All WNBA was New York Liberty. I took Rebecca Lobo. And then Los Angeles Sparks, I took Lisa Leslie. Detroit Shock, which is merged into the Tulsa Shock, which then became the Dallas Wings. I got nobody.
Okay. I would say try Katie Smith.
Nope.
Detroit Shock, you say, right?
Hey.
Try Teresa Witherspoon. I know she was in New York, but for some reason I think that she was there as well.
Nope.
Well, I know she's there for the Liberty, so.
We already got the Liberty.
And what are the other ones?
Well, we got the Liberty and we got the Sparks, but right now we've got 4 guesses left to fill out 7 boxes. Obviously, we're not going to do that, but one that we can work on is the Detroit Shock, Tulsa Shock, Dallas Wings, who's been an all WNBAer.
Well, I mean, what are the you said for those 3 teams?
Oh.
What else was there?
Name one player that's played for the Minnesota Lynx and the New York Liberty. Name one player that's played for the Phoenix Mercury and the New York Liberty. Name one player that's played for Minnesota and LA, or Phoenix and LA. And then we get into our shock in Minnesota or shock in Phoenix.
Candace Parker, I thought, played for. I think Candace Parker played for the Mercury and the LA.
No, sir. We're not doing real well, by the way. And by we, I mean you. I did my 2. But see, that's the thing. Like, I don't even know. I mean, I'll give you credit. At least you're guessing on this. But I just truly don't know. Like, I mean, to me, one of the more famous WNBA basketball players that I know is Katie Feenster, now Katie Matera.
No, she
I could
didn't.
not tell you a second team she played for. You what?
Unfortunately, she did not do much in the WNBA, and she played for San Antonio.
Yep.
Her and Megan Frazee were there.
Did she ever play for anybody else?
I don't believe so. She only played for the Silver Stars.
Now, every now and again, you'll find a one of the categories may be somebody who only played for one team. That can be very tough, but your mentality on that sometimes needs to be, well, name like a rookie who's still playing there. But guess what? That's going to be everybody else's thing too. And as we have discussed many times before, the more rare the answer, the better. That's what you're shooting for.
True. Okay.
Trivia is not easy. It's really it's a memory game of watching sports over the years. And, you know, I think one way I get good at trivia is because I've got all these sports calendars. Sometimes when I quiz you and Santiago in our group chat, I get just as good at stuff like that because I'm asking you the question, and my head is running about questions that I could ask or answers that the other guys would be good for. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like, it's, I mean, and I'm so like I have grid fever on trying to match up these players that have played for two teams and everything. It gets my brain thinking. I mean, I remember when I would watch basketball games, I used to watch it as an announcer when I was doing play-by-play for high school basketball on the radio. I could not watch a game just to enjoy it. It was the weirdest thing. But that's enough about me.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting though.
The study of the brain is so interesting to me because I don't understand it, one. And two, how you determine something and think of something may be totally different than how I do it. So it's just like, I don't want to say it's weird to me, but it is kind of like, we're all created differently. And, how you see something and how I see something may be totally different.
Oh, yeah, it's true. No, that was just something I figured I would try to work on with you, but
We did good, didn't we?
we did very good. So, what did the answers that they showed you after the fact?
Oh, let me see. Let me go back to it. So the way it works is it gives you the most popular.
Okay.
Let's see. So the most popular person that has played for the Liberty and Minnesota was Natasha Howard.
Okay.
For Minnesota and LA, it was Simone Augustus.
Okay. That's fair.
For LA and Phoenix, it was Carly Samuelson. For New York and Phoenix, it was Tina Charles.
Okay.
All WNBA most popular for New York was Sabrina Ionescu. For LA, it was Lisa Leslie. And Minnesota in the Shock, Natasha Howard.
Okay.
But I think the Shock have become the Wings, if I'm not mistaken. Phoenix and the Wings / Shock, Skylar Diggins Smith. And all WNBA was Ariki Agun Bowell.
Agamike.
Yeah, her too. But it also gives you all the answers for them. So, like, for that all WNBA for the Liberty, there were 9 choices.
Mm-hmm.
Weatherspoon.
I know Teresa Weatherspoon was one of them.
Weatherspoon, Lobo, Tari Phillips, Becky Hammond, Cappie Poindexter, Tina Charles, Epiphany Prince, Sabrina, and Brianna Stewart.
Okay.
So it's a fun little game. I think, honestly, you improve your knowledge just by seeing, players, because, like I said, the name of the game is rare, but at the same time, you want to guess people too. Even if they're not rare. I mean, for me and other people, we're trying to play the game to where we can go as rare as possible. It's about getting them right, but if we don't get under a certain score, we get mad.
I believe it.
So, and by we, I'm talking about me and Nick Pierce when we play baseball.
What did you guys get today?
I don't remember what he got. I got like 118, and I got all 9 right. But if I get all 9 right and don't get below 100, I get upset. Not to like where I'm throwing things around the house upset, but like, I have a self-talk with myself, and it's not very nice because I'm like, Bob, you idiot. Why'd you put him type of thing?
Yeah, I'm looking at what they have right here, and
but I've got a friend out there because I always send him my NBA, And he's like, hey, that's really good. And I'm like, some days I know it's not good, but like, I'm also the weird guy that's putting like, people that played in the 80s because I saw them on a home video of dazzling dunks and basketball bloopers or whatever. And it jogs
Mm,
my memory of, oh, yeah, he was in the league, as opposed to where you don't want to guess like, Charles Barkley for everything because everybody knows Charles Barkley, but people might not know Kenny Smith. Well, that's a bad example, but people might not know, Matt Bullard, who played for the Rockets when they were in that heyday. So, like, those are the names, but like, your Barkleys, your Shaqs, anybody that's been relevant as a player or on TV, I think is harder. Because how many people do you hear on TV talk about, well, when I played here and when I played there? I mean, all you need to get is two teams that are different.
true, and I mean, if I recall right, Matt Bullock was 1T.
Matt Bullard was two. He played for the
Oh, boy.
Rockets and I want to say the Pistons. But let me check on that. I know he played for two.
For some reason I remember, thought it was 1T for Bullock.
Bullard. Bullard played for the Rockets, the Hawks, and the Hornets. So I was wrong on Detroit. So see, that proves I don't know everything. Because there's a lot of times where I guess somebody, and the worst thing is when I guess somebody, and they didn't play for either of the teams I guessed them for. I'm like, gosh,
Hmm.
how could you?
All right, so for women's basketball, looks like actually Brittany Griner's jersey is going to be retired by Baylor. LSU was number 9, but they've had their second straight loss. And Kansas State this last weekend, they were number 2 and they lost to Oklahoma. So right now they're still number 2, but that could change in the next day or two. Whereas when you're looking at men's basketball, I know you didn't really watch basketball this weekend, so I'm not going to hold you to your thought, but I saw UNC was stunned by Georgia Tech.
Right.
Final seconds because the North Carolina player was fouled, but the refs never called it.
I'll tell you what.
So,
I feel like every day I'm getting an alert on my basketball on my sports app of saying top 10 team got beat. Top 10 team got beat. I'm like, man, it happens so often in basketball that like I don't want to say the rankings mean nothing, but like I mean, it's so hard. I think to me, and this is what I don't think enough people understand about sports. I think it's so hard to win on the road.
yeah. Now, I see that Tennessee lost to South Carolina late three-pointer. And then Izzo got his 700th win on his birthday against Michigan.
Well, nothing says happy birthday like beating the rival.
Well, then for him having 700,
Yeah.
that's pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think of like if you look at it, there's a lot of people and you don't beat the rival for a monumental win. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So this week, Old Dominion scoring leader Vossen Alette, he got dismissed from the team for conduct unbecoming of a monarch. He was second in the Sun Belt Conference in scoring, and he was leading the Monarchs in rebounding, assists, and steals. But you got to be pretty bad if you're getting dismissed from the team during the season.
Yeah.
it's disappointing to see something like that, honestly.
I 100% agree. I mean, you've got to think most of these guys are not going to be getting paid to play at the professional level. So you really got to focus on the things you can focus on. And, so many people get, like you said, Alan, I think you hit the nail right on the head. You got to do something pretty bad to get dismissed during season.
I mean, Old Dominion's probably not going to make the NCAA tournament as it is, but if you've got your leading scorer, rebounder, and assist player, and he's having conduct unbecoming of a Monarch,
Yeah.
I know this guy's the assistant coach, but I mean, he took over. He's now the head man, and I mean, if he's saying it's bad, and he's been there for a month now, he's been the head man there for just over a month since the ODU coach had the heart attack while battling cancer. So he's going to stay away for the rest of the year. Obviously, he's been seeing that the score had started the first 18 games and they took him off the bench. He, I guess, was not a fan of coming off the bench, so decided he was going to throw a fit. And, well, if you're going to throw a fit to your coach about that, well, he can say, yeah, you're gone. Goodbye.
Yep.
It's a pity, but
Most people know the rules, though, before everything starts. There's normally not a surprise on rules. So when people break the rules, it's not that I don't feel bad, but it's not like you got every page of the rule book except the rule you broke. Normally that's not like on the back page and fine print underneath, everything. So
well, I mean, the only reason why I knew it's on that is when the coach says unbecoming of a Monarch.
right.
I mean, you've heard a lot of people getting suspended for stupid stuff, but when you're hearing the head coach say that,
Yeah.
and this guy is like even though he's a freshman, he's technically the leader for the team. And if you're gonna not be a role model or be someone who's gonna try to do something that's gonna help the team,
Yeah.
sure he may catch on somewhere else, but it's not as bad as a few years ago. The player who was going for the 3-pointer and got hit in the face,
Right.
and that guy got thrown out of the league and the team. I mean, it's not as bad as that, but still, it's not. It not only embarrasses Old Dominion, but it just makes it so people are like, oh, well, why would we want to go there
Yep.
if we can have a player like that?
Right.
I applaud the coach for saying get out, but the question is it too little too late, or did something else happen and they're finally just like, yeah, man, we're not going to take this anymore?
Yeah, and stuff like that's probably stuff we'll never know.
That's true. I mean, that's stuff that we find out after the fact in a lot of different things,
Yep.
but that's the thing that you notice a lot more in college sports than in pros, because when it happens in college and it does get called out, it usually is a lot worse.
Right.
I mean, we're just going to have to keep our fingers crossed and see how that goes, just because with the college football season, we got baseball, we got basketball right now, but we still have sports. We have baseball, softball, lacrosse, just a few that are coming up.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's just watching that and seeing what's coming, and then you see that the Frozen Four is getting ready to come up in a little bit.
Yep.
So, I mean, just that, and then gymnastics, it's not a question of if, it's a question of what, and just how it's going to be for everybody.
Sure.
Is there anything else you can think of tonight, sir, that I haven't tried to question or look at so far?
I think you've hit every dart on the dartboard, every target.
Hopefully so, and hopefully next week I'll be able to enjoy the show more without enjoying the boot and walker that I get to use. Just because, well, if I showed you me walking around with a walker and a boot, I'm pretty sure you would be laughing kind of hard. I wouldn't blame you, but still, it's a little bit different than my normal routine. But when you snap a bone, you got to just roll with it, and like they say, play the hand you're dealt.
Sure.
So if we were going to try to find you outside of here, how would we do that, sir?
Go to X, the sports buffet.
All right. For me, if you were going to do that, which is dangerous, not as dangerous as Fallen Bob, but still, you could find me at X at Alan F. West or at Facebook and Instagram at Alan.West.46. Next week, hopefully, we'll be able to have another guest on, whether it be possibly Tyler Turner, possibly Chris Caravello, or I may try to see about getting Jeremy Monasteau back on like we did last year, see if we could have him either make a few picks or just discuss how basketball is. So, just something to keep in mind. But once again, I'm Alan. That's Bob. This has been the Top 25 Rundown. Have a great week, everybody.